morning, all you homesteader wannabes. Welcome back to Castle Farms Homestead. We have been kind of sidelined here a little bit because of the weather and what a muddy mess our property has become. So, trying to get some things done here at the home base. And one thing that's been on my mind for quite some time is a project that's not really a project, it's something that I had been doing regularly for quite a while, and but not in quite some time. In fact, I was just trying to think of how long this has been sitting there untouched. Honey, do you know how long?
6 months?
Months. Several months. Anyway, one of the things that I started doing to take that one step closer to being more healthy and self-reliant is I started brewing kombucha. I love my Diet Pepsi. I'm sure many of you have similar type addicts, addictions, I should say. But in order to try to wean myself from, I love that, the fizziness and all that of a soda. And so to try to help me with that, I started brewing kombucha, and I loved it, and it was really good. So anyway, I've been keeping it going for quite some time, but recently, like I said, haven't really done it for several months. So it's been sitting here in the closet in our pantry for several months, and this is where I typically keep it to let it stay out of the sunlight. We'll turn on the light so you can see inside the pantry. But I typically keep it right, I can do it there, sitting up on the shelf up there. And if you look closely, we'll get a little closer, you can see SCOBY inside of there and all. And if you don't know what kombucha is, I'm really not going to go into a bunch of details of that, but basically that's a fermented tea, and you have a bacterial growth, a SCOBY, that helps to process everything that's in it and eat the sugars and create the fizziness and all that. So, but it's been sitting there for so long, I'm not sure if it's even any good still. So we're gonna do a little experimentation. I thought we'd get the kombucha out. We'll pull out a SCOBY and start the whole process again and see if it works. So here we go. I've got my former kombucha sitting here. You can see I've got a cloth on the top of it to allow air in, but not let any bugs in and all that. The SCOBY down inside here. SCOBY, if you don't know what that's, it's a acronym. It's an acronym. Stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. Yeah. SCOBY. Yep. So anyway, let's take a look. I actually had messed with this already, so you don't get to see what it really looked like on here. But the top layer was all just the white part of the SCOBY and all sitting up on the top of the kombucha when I pulled it out. At first I was thinking I was just gonna, I don't know what I was gonna do with it, but then I decided, well, might as well try to make some and see if it works. So, okay, I'm going to use a metal spoon to get it, or not metal, a non-metal spoon. I'm going to use a wooden spoon. They say that aluminum and that will react with the bacteria, so we try not to use that. But so I'm going to try to get this out. It's big and awkward. So Bobby always says it looks like a placenta. But there you can see. And if you look closely, you can see like the different layers. And over time, your SCOBY will get bigger and bigger, and eventually you'll have to make it smaller, or it'll just take over. But it looks kind of gross. We'll put that in there. And I've also got, the interesting thing is, when I first started this one, Bobby bought me a SCOBY off the internet, and this is what it came like, only it wasn't dark like that. I don't know if that means that's no good anymore, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use some of this new stuff here. Actually, I think I'm using this right here. But this is, again, you can kind of see the layers as it builds up and grows. But you don't need a ton of it to start your kombucha. So I think I'll probably just get rid of the rest of that and use this to start my next batch. And you want to take some of that, and you also want to take some of the previous batch. Now, what I'm not sure about this, see, this has been sitting for so long and it's gone through this whole fermentation process and has, in fact, if you smell it right now, that's very vinegary smell, very vinegary. So this kombucha batch may turn out being a little vinegary, which happens sometimes if you leave it too long or whatever through that fermenting process. But as long as the SCOBY's still alive, which by the looks of it, I think it is. I think we can get something growing here. I think we can use it. So the rest of this, I'm just gonna dump. But the way you do this is you first want to take like 8 bags of tea and simmer them like you typically would, make your tea. And then we'll go from there with that. I've gone ahead and gotten rid of the rest of the SCOBY that I don't want to use and rinsed out the jar that we're putting it in. And I'm reheating the tea because it's been sitting for a little while. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the tea, put that in our jar. We're going to add sugar to it. I'm going to use about 2 cups of sugar. Don't worry about how much sugar you do put in there. You think, oh, that's a lot of sugar I'm putting in there. That's actually feeding the SCOBY. So the bacteria have something to eat to do its process. And so that will be taken up. And so don't worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab our tea. And we're going to add that. And this is a black tea. You can use green tea. You can also use like oolong tea, and hope I'm saying that right, and rooibos or something like that. I can't remember what it's called.
Rooibos.
Rooibos. So there's different teas that you can use. I understand that herbal teas don't really work. No. All right, we've got some good hot tea in there. Like I said, I'm going to use about 2 cups of sugar. I do it when it's hot because it dissolves a lot easier. And then after that, I add room temperature water. Do not add your SCOBY in to the hot tea. That will kill it. So before you add that SCOBY in, you need to wait until it's cooled down, or if you brought it down with some room temperature water, you want to get it close to room temperature before you put the SCOBY in. All right, that looks like it's all dissolved. So I'm going to get some room temperature water. I use filtered water. A lot of people don't like to use tap water because of all the chemicals that are in it, things that can help, again, to kill the bacteria. So we use filtered water and to try to keep that SCOBY and all that bacteria alive. So I'm going to grab some water. I've got a jug of filtered water that we filter with our Berkey. And so I'm just going to fill this up to, you got to leave room to add the SCOBY and the start liquid. So I'm going to go about there. Yeah, that should be pretty good. maybe a little bit more. I'll mix that up. And then I'm going to check the temperature and see where we're at. I've got my thermometer. We're going to check the temperature here. Yeah, it's a little hot right now. It's about 90 degrees or so right now. So we're going to let that sit for a while and come back to it. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours now since I put the water in with the tea. And it was a little too hot, so now it's cool. It's cooled down. Now it's room temperature. It's good. So now I just want to add the SCOBY and the extra fluid. The extra fluid was from the last batch, so it's got lots of good bacteria in it. I hope, like I said, this is an experiment because it's been such a long time. But I'm just going to add that in. And I'm going to add the SCOBY in. The SCOBY may or may not float, and it really doesn't matter what it does. If it floats, great. If it falls to the ground or to the bottom of the jar, that's great. No problem. It looks like this one's going to come up to the top. But what we're expecting, next I'm going to mix that a little bit, just so we get that starter fluid mixed in there. Good. So what we're expecting now, whoa, hello. Well, you won't stick that back in. What we're expecting now is for this to go to work. And over the next week, we're going to leave it for a week in the pantry in a dark place. We're going to cover it with a cloth. But we're expecting then for that bacteria to go to work, and it should also form a SCOBY, grow more, or even sometimes a new SCOBY. Like with my starter before, that little round disc, it just stayed like that the whole time, but we just formed a new SCOBY up on top each time. So we're going to set that aside for 7 days, and we'll get back to you then. It has been about 2 weeks now. That's a little bit longer than I typically want to do that first fermentation for. Usually I go for about 9 days, but things have been happening, so it's been 2 weeks. So we're going to take it out now. It's been sitting in the pantry fermenting. And we'll take off the cover, and it has got a nice new SCOBY developed in there. You can see that. Isn't that nice? We're going to remove the SCOBY and set it aside along with a little bit of the juice, a little bit of the kombucha. There we go. Look at that. You'll want to wash your hands before you do this, but you can see there how thick it is. And that is a beautiful, beautiful SCOBY right there.
Looks like an uncooked tortilla.
And so I'm just going to put, about a cup's worth of fluid in with it there. And then we're going to put the rest of this in a pitcher so it'll be easier to pour. The old SCOBY is down in the bottom of this. I'm not going to use that at all. In fact, I think I'm probably just going to discard this one now. Now that I've got that beautiful new one. This one seemed to do the job even after sitting in there for months and not being fed or anything. So we'll just kind of get rid of that one. So a lot of people will drink the kombucha even at this stage, just after the first fermentation. and it could have some fizz and stuff too, even at this stage. But most people will want to now put it through a second fermentation, and so you have to feed it again, something with some sugar in it. And this is where you get to flavor it and use different things. You can use different fruits, whole fruits or mashed up fruits or whatever. Today I'm going to use some juice. I love grape juice. And so I am going to use some grape juice. This is 100% grape juice. And I'm going to put, about a quarter of the container with some grape juice in it. And it doesn't have to be exact, and you can do what you want. And as you do kombucha, you can kind of play with it and see how you like it. But this is going to provide the sugar for the kombucha to feed on and go through that second fermentation. And because we're going to put a lid on it and keep it secured down airtight, it will form a carbonation in there. And that will be the next step that we'll do together after this has time to do its thing. So once this is all done, I put in the kombucha with this, then I will set it aside, and I like to put it on a tray because sometimes as this ferments and begins to get all bubbly fizzy in there, sometimes it will overflow. And so you want to be prepared for that to happen. And so I put it on a tray. That way if it happens, it's not going to bother anything. So anyway, we've got our juice in there, grape juice. Sometimes I'll do different flavors. So I'll do a few grape, do a few mashed strawberries, whatever it might be. And you can experiment around, do whatever you want to do with that. But we're going to fill it up the rest of the way with the kombucha. I'm going to take it right about up to the neck. Now I've just taken bottles that have gotten different beverages in or sauces in. You want to use glass, you don't want to use plastic. I prefer to have a metal lid with a seal on it, but some of these are plastic and they seem to do just fine. So looks like we're going to make all those bottles there. I'm going to add a little bit more of some of these that are a little lower. So then I just put the lids on, and when I put the lids on, of course, I'll make sure it's good and tight, snug it down. Then I just do a little couple shakes just to make sure the juice is mixed up well in there. And then I'll take all those, set them aside. I usually just put it on the table here or on the counter. Well, like I said, on a tray in case it wants to come out over the sides, which usually it doesn't. And I'm going to leave it there for probably 5 days. And that all depends upon how much carbonation you want. Some people will leave it less and some more. And you can test it out. If you're not exactly sure where you're at with it, you can open one and test it out. And if it's not enough carbonation for you, then let it sit a little bit longer. But I found that it's usually around 5 days that it gets a good carbonation. There we go. Okay, so next time we'll be back is in about 5 days, and we will see how we're doing. So we'll see you in just a moment. So I've got all my bottles, lids on, set aside in a tray to hang out. They look cute. They can sit on your table, sit on your counter, whatever it might be. In the past, Bobby's had some decorations, and I just kind of put them out around the decorations. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. What I wanted to share too was that this now was the time then to go ahead, and if you want to continue to perpetuate your kombucha and continue to have stuff ready for you, now would be the time then to take the SCOBY that you pulled apart and the extra cup of kombucha with the start, and go ahead and brew yourself another set of tea and start that process again with the SCOBY back in again, and that way you'll continually have more kombucha going. So we'll see you again in about 3 to 5 days. It has been about 8 days now since we started the second fermentation of our kombucha, and I'm a little bit worried about it because I don't see the typical bubbling that seems to occur during that second fermentation. As I look at these bottles, one good thing I do see is that we see other SCOBYs forming inside of there. In some of them, you can see just like a layer right across the top there. But typically, I would see kind of a little foaming at the top when I'm getting that good carbonation. So I'm afraid that something is not right because of that SCOBY being so old. Yeah, so we're going to try it out anyway, see how it goes. SCOBYs, they're good for you. So if you got one, just drink it up. You can chew it up. It's good for you. It's kind of weird. It's slimy, but it doesn't bother you after you do it a couple times. So I'm going to open this one up. I'm hoping it'll pop, and like you do with a soda bottle, and you'll hear something, but let's give that a shot. Nothing. That's what I was afraid of. But we're going to try it out anyway. I like ice. I like mine cold. We'll see if we, yep, there we go. Got a little SCOBY with it. Woohoo! We'll still get to try it out. Cool it off a little bit. If it is really fermented, oftentimes I'll stick it in the fridge and leave it there and get it good and cold to start with, because sometimes it'll just like foam out all over the place when you pop the lid. So it tastes good, but there is no there's no carbonation in there. Darn it. I don't know what's wrong, but it's good. Tastes good. The process we went through, that's exactly what you do. So I don't know exactly what's gone on with as far as the fermentation, why that's different. But I did start a new batch, and so we'll get to try another batch with that one. And you can see it seems to be growing a good SCOBY on there and all again too. So the process appears to be going right in this one. But if this one doesn't get the carbonation, I think I'm going to have to start with a brand new SCOBY, see what happened, see if that fixes it. Should fix it then. But that is the process you do, and it's not very difficult. It just takes a little time to do it. We'll give you an update on this one later at some point. But thanks for coming. If you start doing this, maybe you can get one step closer to some of your goals as far as being self-reliant and eating and drinking a little more nutritious rather than having that Diet Pepsi like I'm so addicted to having. So good luck with all that. We'll see you next time on Castle Farms Homestead.